This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. My name is Lauren Carter. I'm 34, a self-made woman who turned a gamble on an interior design business into a thriving company. I live in a quiet suburban town, in a white wooden house I bought with my own money, a place I once thought was my sanctuary. I've always prided myself on my strength, my ability to keep things together even when life throws curveballs. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment my little sister Julie dropped a bomb that shattered my world. It was a rainy March evening in 2025, the kind where the air feels heavy with secrets. I sat across from her and my husband Mark in our living room, the fireplace crackling softly, when she looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm pregnant, Lauren. It's Mark's, and I think you should leave so we can start our family." The words hit me like a freight train. My heart stopped, then raced, a wild thudding in my chest that drowned out the rain tapping against the windows. Julie sat there, her 28-year-old face smug yet nervous, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, like she'd rehearsed this moment but hadn't quite nailed the delivery. Mark, my husband of 5 years, my partner for 8, just stared at the floor, his hands clasped tight, his dark hair falling over his forehead. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand answers, but instead I froze, the weight of betrayal pinning me to the couch. How had it come to this? How had the sister I'd taken in, the husband I'd supported, turned my life into a soap opera nightmare? Let me back up. A few months ago, Julie showed up at my doorstep, a shadow of the vibrant girl I'd grown up with. She'd lost her job, or so she said, when her company went under, and then she'd gotten sick, something about West Nile virus that left her weak and desperate. Our parents live hours away, too far to help, and Julie's friends were either broke or busy with their own lives. I talked it over with Mom and Dad, and we agreed she could stay with me for a few weeks, just until she got back on her feet. I've always believed in family, in stepping up when someone's down, so I opened my home to her. Mark didn't argue. He just nodded and went back to tapping away at his novel, the one he'd been working on for 4 years with nothing to show for it. At first it was fine. Julie slept in the guest room, her stuff scattered across the floor like a teenager's. I'd come home from long days at the office, my heels clicking on the hardwood, and find her curled up on the couch, sipping tea I'd bought, watching reality TV. Mark would be in his study, headphones on, lost in his writing, or so I thought. I was too busy running my business to notice the little things, the way Julie started lingering in the kitchen when Mark cooked dinner, the way he'd laugh a bit too loud at her dumb jokes. I trusted them. Why wouldn't I? They were my family. But that night, with the rain pouring and Julie's words echoing in my ears, I realized how blind I'd been. "You should leave," she'd said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Mark and I deserve a fresh start." I looked at him, waiting for him to deny it, to tell me this was some sick prank, but he just sat there, pale and silent. Fury bubbled up inside me, hot and sharp, but I swallowed it down. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. "This is my house," I said, my voice low and controlled, though my hands shook as I gripped the armrest. "I bought it. My name's on the deed. If anyone's leaving, it's you two. I'm filing for divorce, Mark and Julie. You can take your little fantasy and get out of my sight." Julie's smugness faltered, her blue eyes widening like she hadn't expected me to fight back. Mark finally looked up, his brown eyes guilty but resigned. "Lauren, he started, but I cut him off. "Don't. Just don't." Then Julie dropped another bomb. "He lied to me," she snapped, turning on Mark like a cornered animal. "He told me he owned everything, that he was some big-shot writer. I thought we'd kick you out together." Mark's jaw tightened, and he shook his head. "I never said that," he muttered. "You twisted everything." It was almost comical, watching them turn on each other, but I was too angry to laugh. "Enough," I said, standing up. "Pack your stuff and go, both of you, now." Mark didn't argue. He slunk off to our bedroom, my bedroom now, grabbing a duffel bag and shoving clothes into it. Julie, though, fell to her knees, clutching at my legs, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Lauren, I'm pregnant. I have nowhere to go. He's your nephew." That word, nephew, lit a fire in me. I grabbed her arm, yanking her up harder than I meant to, and shoved her toward the door. "Don't you dare call us family," I hissed, my voice breaking despite my efforts to stay calm. "You slept with my husband in my house. Get out or I'm calling the cops." She stumbled onto the porch, sobbing, banging on the door as I tossed her bags after her. "Lauren, please," she wailed, but I slammed the door shut, my chest heaving. Mark came out a few minutes later, his bag slung over his shoulder. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice cracking. I didn't look at him, didn't answer. I just put on my headphones, cranked the volume, and waited until the porch went silent. The next morning, I called my lawyer, a no-nonsense guy named Tom who'd helped me set up my business. "I want a divorce," I told him, my voice steady even as my hands trembled around my coffee mug. "File it today." He didn't ask questions, just said, "Consider it done." I should have felt relief, but all I felt was a hollow ache, like someone had carved out a piece of me and left the wound raw. Then my phone rang. It was Dad. I picked up, expecting support, but instead he launched into a lecture. "Lauren, how could you kick Julie out? She's pregnant, jobless, recovering from that virus. Your mother and I raised you better than this." I sat there, stunned, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "She slept with Mark, Dad," I said, my voice rising. "In my house, and you're defending her?" Mom got on the line, her voice softer but just as firm. "She's your sister, honey. Mark seduced her, told her lies about being rich and famous. She's naive. You can't abandon her now." I couldn't believe it. My parents, who'd always been fair, who'd cheered me on when I built my company from nothing, were taking her side. "I don't have a sister," I said, my throat tight with anger and hurt. "She betrayed me, and so did Mark. I'm not keeping her here like nothing happened." Dad sighed, heavy and disappointed. "You're being too harsh. She's family." I hung up, my hands shaking, tears burning my eyes. I blocked their numbers after that, the silence a small shield against the guilt they tried to heap on me. Work became my lifeline. I'd walk into my office, a sleek space with exposed brick and big windows, and throw myself into meetings, designs, anything to keep my mind off the mess at home. My assistant, Mia, a bubbly 20-something with pink streaks in her hair, noticed something was off but didn't pry. "You okay, boss?" she'd ask, and I'd force a smile. "Just a rough week," I'd say, and she'd nod, leaving me coffee and quiet. But when I got home, the facade crumbled. I'd collapse on the couch, the same one where Julie had dropped her bombshell, and cry until my chest hurt. 8 years with Mark, 8 years of love, laughter, plans to grow old together, gone. I kept replaying it, wondering if I'd missed signs, if he'd cheated before, if I'd been a fool to trust him. The pain was a living thing, clawing at me, but I refused to let it win. A few days later, I got a knock on my door. It was Ethan Brooks, a tall guy in a leather jacket, his dark eyes sharp and serious. "I'm a friend of Julie's," he said, holding up a folder. "Well, ex-friend. I heard what happened, and I think you deserve the truth." I hesitated, then let him in, my curiosity outweighing my exhaustion. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, sliding the folder over. "Julie didn't lose her job because the company closed," he said. "She was fired for stealing petty cash. And that West Nile virus story? Bullshit. She faked it to get sympathy." I stared at him, my coffee mug warm in my hands, the steam curling up like the doubts swirling in my mind. Ethan's voice was steady, but there was an edge to it, like he was angry too. His leather jacket creaked as he leaned forward, flipping open the folder. Inside were pay stubs, a termination letter with Julie's name in bold, and a handwritten note from her old boss calling her untrustworthy. My stomach churned, a mix of shock and something darker, vindication maybe. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice rough from lack of sleep. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, his jaw tight. "Because she screwed me over too. We worked together at that marketing firm. I covered for her once when she borrowed from the cash box, thought she was just desperate. Then she did it again, and I got blamed. Almost lost my job. When I heard she pulled this stunt with you, I couldn't stay quiet." His eyes met mine, and I saw something raw there. Regret, maybe even guilt. I nodded slowly, processing it. "Thanks, Ethan. This helps." He stood to leave, but paused at the door. "Watch your back, Lauren. Julie's not done. She's got a way of twisting things." I watched him go, his warning sinking in, a cold prickle running down my spine. I didn't know it then, but he was right. Julie wasn't just a liar. She was a storm waiting to hit again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the living room, the hardwood creaking under my bare feet, replaying Ethan's words. The house felt too big, too empty without Mark's quiet presence, without Julie's clutter. I poured a glass of wine, the red liquid catching the dim light, and sat at the table with Ethan's folder. Every page was a knife twist. Julie had built a whole life on lies, and I'd bought it. I was halfway through the glass when my phone buzzed. It was Rachel Hayes, my best friend and the sharpest private investigator I know. "You up?" she asked, her voice crisp despite the late hour. "Yeah," I said, rubbing my eyes. "Just got a visit from some guy named Ethan. He says Julie's been lying about everything." Rachel laughed, a dry, knowing sound. "Figures. I'm coming over. We need to talk." 20 minutes later, she was at my door, her short black hair damp from the drizzle, a messenger bag slung over her shoulder. She dropped onto the couch, kicking off her boots. "Spill it," she said, and I did. Everything from Julie's bombshell to Ethan's revelations. Rachel listened, her green eyes narrowing as she flipped through the folder. "This is gold," she said, tapping the termination letter. "But it's not enough. If Julie's faking a pregnancy too, we need proof. I'll dig into her accounts, her purchases, see if she's dumb enough to leave a trail." I leaned back, my head pounding. "You think she planned this from the start?" Rachel smirked. "With Julie? I'd bet my badge on it. She's not just a flake, she's a schemer. Give me a couple days." Before she left, she hugged me, quick and fierce. "You're tougher than this, Lauren. Don't let her win." I nodded, but as the door clicked shut, I felt the weight of it all pressing down again. I wasn't sure I was tough enough, not yet. The next morning, I was at the office, trying to focus on a client pitch. Mia, my assistant, buzzed around, her pink-streaked hair bouncing as she handed me sketches. "You look like hell, boss," she said, blunt as ever. I forced a smile. "Long night. How's the Morgan project?" She shrugged, dropping into a chair. "Fine, but seriously, you okay? You've been off since, well, you know." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Family stuff. It's messy." Mia nodded, her usual chatter fading into rare silence. She didn't push, and I was grateful. But the day took a turn when I got a call from an unknown number. "Lauren Carter?" A woman's voice, smooth and professional. "Yes," I said, wary. "This is Detective Lisa Moreno with the sheriff's office. We need to talk about your sister, Julie. Can you come down to the station?" My heart sank, a cold sweat breaking out on my neck. "What's this about?" I asked, gripping the phone. "We'll discuss it here. It's urgent." An hour later, I was sitting in a sterile room at the sheriff's station, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Lisa Moreno walked in, a woman in her 40s with dark hair pulled tight in a bun and a no-nonsense stare. She slid a photo across the table, Julie, laughing in a bar with a guy I didn't recognize, time-stamped 2 weeks ago. "This your sister?" she asked. I nodded, my throat dry. "What's going on?" Lisa leaned back, crossing her arms. "We're investigating a fraud case. Your sister's name came up, linked to a guy named Victor Reyes. He's a small-time con artist, and we think she's working with him. Someone tipped us off about her staying at your place, and now she's claiming you kicked her out over a misunderstanding. We need your side." My mind raced, Ethan's warning echoing. "She's lying," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "She had an affair with my husband, faked a pregnancy, and tried to take my house. I've got proof, documents, recordings." Lisa raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Recordings? That could help. Victor's slippery, and if Julie's tied to him, she's deeper in this than you think." I told her about Ethan, Rachel, Mrs. Clara, everything I'd uncovered. Lisa jotted notes, her pen scratching fast. "We'll need to see that evidence," she said. "And Lauren, if she's with Victor, she might come after you again. Watch yourself." I left the station rattled, the pieces of Julie's life snapping into a twisted puzzle. Victor Reyes. Who the hell was he? I called Rachel on my way home, my hands tight on the steering wheel. "Sheriff's involved now," I said, filling her in. "Some guy named Victor Reyes. Know him?" Rachel cursed under her breath. "Yeah, I've heard of him. Low-life grifter, fake IDs, scams, the works. If Julie's with him, this just got uglier. I'm on it." That night I sat in my kitchen, the house dark except for the glow of my laptop. Rachel had sent me a prelim report. Julie's bank records showed payments to a VR and a purchase for fake pregnancy tests, just like she'd suspected. I was staring at the screen when I heard a noise, a soft thud from the backyard. My pulse spiked, Lisa's warning ringing in my ears. I grabbed a kitchen knife, my breath shallow, and crept to the window. There, under the porch light, was Julie. She was alone, her hair wild, her eyes red and frantic. She banged on the glass, her voice muffled but desperate. "Lauren, let me in. I messed up, okay? I need your help." I froze, the knife cold in my hand, torn between fury and fear. "Go away," I shouted, my voice trembling. "I'm done with you." She pressed her face to the glass, tears streaming. "Victor's after me. He knows I talked to Mark. He's crazy, Lauren, please." My heart pounded, doubt creeping in. Was this another lie, or was she really in danger? I didn't open the door, but I couldn't look away, her pleas cutting through the quiet night. Then headlights flashed down the street, a black SUV slowed, its engine rumbling, and Julie bolted, disappearing into the shadows. The SUV idled for a moment, then drove off. I stood there, shaking, the knife slipping from my fingers to clatter on the counter. I called Rachel right after, my voice barely steady. Julie was here, something about Victor, she's scared, and there was a car. Rachel didn't miss a beat. "Lock your doors. I'm coming over, and I'm bringing backup. This isn't just family drama anymore." Within an hour, Rachel was at my house with Ethan and a guy named Jake, a burly ex-cop she sometimes worked with. Jake had a scar across his cheek and a quiet intensity that made me feel safer. "If Victor's involved, he's not playing," Jake said, checking my windows. "He's got a rap sheet, assault, extortion. Julie's in over her head." Ethan paced, his fists clenched. "She dragged me into her mess once. I should have known she'd pull this again." Rachel set up her laptop, pulling up traffic cam footage she'd hacked into. "There," she said, pointing at a grainy image of the black SUV. "Registered to a shell company Victor uses. He's circling, Lauren. We need to end this." I nodded, my fear hardening into resolve. I want her out of my life. And him too. What do we do? Rachel grinned, a glint in her eye. "We set a trap. Julie's the bait. She'll come back. And when she does, we'll have Victor right where we want him." Rachel's plan was simple but risky. "Julie's desperate," she said, her fingers flying across her laptop as she pulled up more footage. "She'll come back here. It's her only safe spot left. When she does, we'll be ready. Victor's tailing her, so we let him think he's got the upper hand, then flip it." I sat across from her at the kitchen table, the knife still on the counter where I dropped it, my nerves frayed but my mind sharp. Ethan leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, while Jake checked the locks again, his broad shoulders filling the doorway. "You sure about this?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Rachel looked up, her green eyes fierce. "We've got this, Lauren. Trust me." I did. I had to. The past few weeks had stripped away everything I thought I knew. My marriage, my family, my sense of safety. But Rachel was a rock, and Ethan and Jake were here, risking their necks for me. "Okay," I said, exhaling hard. "Let's do it." Jake nodded, pulling a small radio from his belt. "I'll set up outside. Keep watch. If that SUV rolls by again, I'll know." Ethan cracked his knuckles, a grim smile tugging at his lips. "I owe Julie a reckoning. I'm in." We spent the next hour prepping. Rachel rigged a camera in the living room, its tiny lens hidden in a bookshelf, streaming to her laptop. Jake took position in the backyard, blending into the shadows near the oak tree, his radio crackling softly. Ethan stayed with me inside, his presence a quiet comfort as we waited. The house was silent except for the hum of the fridge, every creak making me jump. I kept replaying Julie's face at the window, wild, terrified, and wondered how my little sister had fallen so far. Part of me pitied her, but the bigger part, the one still raw from her betrayal, wanted this over. Around midnight it happened. A soft knock, then Julie's voice, hoarse and pleading. "Lauren, please, I know you're in there. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Just let me in." I glanced at Ethan, who nodded, his hand on his phone ready to text Rachel. I walked to the door, my heart hammering, and cracked it open. Julie stood there, soaked from the rain, her mascara streaking down her face. "Victor's coming," she whispered, her eyes darting to the street. "He thinks I ratted him out. He's gonna kill me." I wanted to slam the door, to scream at her for dragging me into this, but Rachel's plan held me back. "Come in," I said, stepping aside, my voice cold. She stumbled past me, collapsing onto the couch, her hands shaking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she sobbed, clutching her knees. "Mark was a mistake. The baby was a lie. Victor made me do it." Ethan stepped forward, his face hard. "Victor didn't make you steal from our job, Julie, or sleep with your sister's husband. That was all you." She flinched, her sobs hitching, but before she could answer, Jake's voice crackled through Ethan's phone. "Black SUV, 2 blocks out. 2 guys inside. They're coming." My pulse spiked, adrenaline flooding me. Rachel burst in from the kitchen, laptop under her arm. Camera's rolling. Lauren, keep her talking. We need her to admit it on tape. I nodded, turning to Julie, my anger boiling over. Tell me the truth, I said, my voice sharp. All of it, now. Julie wiped her face, her eyes darting between us. Okay. Victor, he's my boyfriend, all right? We've been running scams for months. He found out about you, your business, your house. He said if I got Mark on board, we could push you out, sell the place, split the cash. I faked the pregnancy to seal it. Mark bought it, but you didn't. Her words hit like punches, each one confirming what I'd feared. You used me, I said, my voice trembling with rage. My home, my life, you tried to steal it all. She reached for my hand, but I yanked it back. I'm sorry, Lauren, I was broke, desperate. Victor said it'd be easy. Rachel smirked, shutting her laptop. Got it. That's enough for the cops. Just then, headlights flashed through the curtains, tires screeching as the SUV pulled up. Jake's voice came again, urgent. They're out. 2 guys armed. Get ready. Panic clawed at me, but Rachel grabbed my arm. Basement now. Ethan, with me. Julie screamed, scrambling to her feet, but Ethan shoved her back onto the couch. You stay, he growled. You brought this here. I ran for the basement door, Rachel behind me, her gun drawn, a sleek black pistol I didn't even know she carried. We crouched behind the stairs, the air damp and thick, my breath loud in my ears. Above us, the front door crashed open, heavy boots thudding on the floor. A man's voice, rough and deep, Victor, I assumed, barked, Where is she, Julie? You think you can hide from me? Julie's cries echoed, shrill and terrified. I didn't tell them anything, I swear. Another voice, colder, laughed. You're a liability, sweetheart. Boss wants you gone. I peeked through the stair slats, my heart in my throat. Victor was tall, wiry, with a shaved head and a scar across his lip. The other guy, shorter and stocky, held a gun, scanning the room. Ethan moved fast, tackling the stocky guy from behind, the gun clattering across the floor. Victor spun, pulling his own weapon, but Rachel was faster. She fired a warning shot, the bang deafening, splintering the wall near his head. Drop it, she shouted, her voice steel. Victor hesitated, then cursed, tossing the gun. Jake burst in from the back, pinning Victor to the ground, his knee on the man's back. Sheriff's 2 minutes out, he said, cuffing him with zip ties. I stumbled up the stairs, my legs weak, as Ethan wrestled the second guy into submission. Julie sat frozen on the couch, her face pale, tears pooling in her lap. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, and I sank against the wall, relief crashing over me like a wave. It was over, really over. Detective Lisa Moreno arrived with backup, her face grim as she surveyed the scene. Nice work, she said, nodding at Rachel. We've been after Reyes for months. Julie's testimony will seal it. They hauled Victor and his goon out, handcuffs clinking, while Julie was led away in a daze, her eyes avoiding mine. Lauren, she whispered as they passed, but I turned away, my chest tight. I couldn't look at her, not after everything. The house was a mess, broken glass, scuff marks, the smell of gunpowder lingering, but I didn't care. Rachel slung an arm around me, her grin tired but triumphant. You're a badass, you know that? I laughed, shaky and raw, the first real laugh in weeks. Ethan joined us, wiping sweat from his brow. She won't bother you again, he said, and I believed him. Jake clapped my shoulder, his gruff voice softening. You're tougher than you look, Carter. Days later, I sat in my office, the sun streaming through the windows, a new contract spread across my desk. Mia buzzed in, her usual energy back. Boss, you're trending on X. Woman takes down sister's crime ring. Wild, I groaned, but a smile tugged at my lips. The story had leaked, Mrs. Clara probably spilling to her bingo group, and it had gone viral. I didn't mind. Let the world know I'd fought and won. Mark texted me that week, a short message. I'm sorry, Lauren. I was weak. Divorce is final. I won't fight it. I read it, felt the old ache, then deleted it. He was gone, a ghost of a life I'd left behind. My parents called too, their voices small and apologetic. We didn't know, Mom said, crying. Julie lied to us too. I listened, but didn't forgive. Not yet. I need time, I told them, and hung up. Now, I'm on my balcony, a notebook in my lap, the spring breeze cool against my skin. I write, not Mark's dreams but mine, words spilling out like a cleanse. Julie's in jail, awaiting trial with Victor. My house is mine again, quiet and whole. I'm not healed, not fully, but I'm free. And that's more than enough. My sister Julie, my husband Mark, Even my parents, they all showed me sides of themselves I never wanted to see. But through the chaos, the sleepless nights, the moments where I wasn't sure I'd make it to the other side, I learned something raw and real. Trust is precious, but it's not unbreakable. And when it shatters, you don't just sit in the wreckage. You fight to rebuild, even if it's just for yourself. I learned that family isn't a free pass to hurt someone and expect forgiveness. Julie took my kindness, my home, and twisted it into a weapon, all for her own gain. Mark let his insecurities drag him into her game, and my parents, well, they chose denial over truth until it was too late. But I also learned I'm stronger than I gave myself credit for. I could have crumbled, let the pain swallow me whole, but I didn't. With Rachel, Ethan, Jake, even Mrs. Clara by my side, I stood up, faced the storm, and came out the other end. It wasn't pretty. There were tears, screams, moments I doubted every choice I'd ever made, but it was mine, my victory, my survival. The biggest lesson, though, people show you who they are when the stakes are high. Julie showed me greed and desperation. Mark showed me weakness masked as pride. Victor showed me cruelty doesn't care who it cuts. But Rachel showed me loyalty, Ethan showed me redemption, and I showed myself I could take the hits and keep going. Life doesn't hand out manuals for this kind of mess. You figure it out as you go, and sometimes you're left with scars that don't fade. That's okay. They're proof I lived through it. So here's my ask to you, whoever's reading this, wherever you are. Have you ever been stabbed in the back by someone you trusted? Maybe it was a friend, a lover, a family member who turned out to be someone else entirely. How did you handle it? Did you break, or did you build something new from the pieces? Drop your story below. I want to hear it. Or if you've got a question, a thought, anything, let me know. This whole thing blew up online thanks to Mrs. Clara's big mouth. And I've seen the comments, the support, the debates about whether I was too harsh or not harsh enough. I'm here for it all. Tell me what you think. Should I forgive my parents someday? Give Mark a chance to explain? Or keep walking my own path, no looking back? Your words matter to me, more than you know. Let's talk.